Hello everyone, and welcome to my first tutorial crochet along. Today we're going to be making one of these little ghost keychains. Great for Halloween, or I think it kind of looks like the Snapchat ghost. If you want to carry around the Snapchat ghost with you, you could do that with just some little face additions. So we're going to make him. He's a great beginner's project, I think. And to do that, first you're going to need a bunch of white yarn, a little bit of black yarn, your fiberfill stuffing, a stitch marker, a needle, a yarn needle, a crochet hook. I use a 3.5mm crochet hook, oh, and also worsted weight yarn. Worsted weight yarn and a 3.5mm crochet hook. You can use whatever yarn and hook size you want, but your size of your ghost will vary depending on what you use. And also some scissors, and I forgot it, but I will get up and get it. But you do need one of these keychain rings, obviously, if you want to put that on a keychain. So I think that's it. Let's get started. Okay, so for our first row, we're going to make a magic ring, and we're going to single crochet 6 onto the magic ring. If you're not comfortable with the magic ring method, you can always chain 2 and single crochet 6 in the second chain from the hook. That's another good way of starting. But here's my magic ring, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, now you're going to want to pull that tail, make that into a tight little circle, and that's row 1. For row 2, you're going to want to increase in each stitch around, so we're putting 2 single crochets in each stitch, so we should end up with 12. And I like to use my hook to loosen the first stitch here because it's usually pretty hard to get into. So 1, and let's go ahead and put our stitch marker in now to mark the beginning of the row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and here's 11, and 12. So 12 stitches makes up our second row. I'm going to go ahead and pull on this tail a little bit more to make the inner circle tighter. For the third row, you should end up with 15 stitches. So we're going to crochet 3 single crochets in the first 3 stitches, and then 2 in the 4th stitch. And that'll give us 5 stitches, and we're going to do that 3 times around. So 1, let's remove our stitch marker again and reinsert it into our new round. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, and this next one is the double, or increase, I should say. You don't want to say double crochet, that's something completely different. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and last set. 1, 2, 3, and in that last stitch you want to do 2 more. So 14, 15. Alright. And our third row is complete. Now for row 4 through 9, all you're going to do is put one single crochet in each stitch around, and that'll give us a tube kind of body shape. I'm not going to count since we know it's 15. I'll just go ahead and do this real fast. I think this pattern would be really great for beginners because it's really small and it's pretty easy for the most part. It does get a little fiddly toward the end, but I think this might be a good starter project. And if you have your own store where you sell crocheted items and you'd like to sell these, feel free to do so. I'm not going to tell you you can't. Just make sure you credit Threadnought as the designer if you're going to do that. So that was 4, this is 5. There's a little bit of string hanging here. Let's see if we can't, yeah, we'll just pull that off. Okay, so 5, that's row 5. And you can easily count this by seeing where these little, like you can pretty much see where the row begins and ends. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Row 6. Oop. And I apologize, I'm pretty new to looking through my camera to see, you know, what I'm crocheting. I will get better at that, I promise, but I can see I tend to bounce around quite a bit as I crochet, and I need to do a better job of holding that steady, I think, but with time I'm sure that'll improve. Okay, so that was row 6, this is 7. 28. And this will be our last row, row 9. Okay, this should be the end of 9 rows, and we can again double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Yes, we are good. Now, we're going to stuff this eventually, but go ahead and take this yarn tail and stick it down in the body for now. We're not going to stuff it just yet. We're going to work now on this little wavy part of the body. Okay, so for this next part, instead of going through the whole stitch, we're going to just insert a hook into the front loop. So this one right here, this is the back loop. And we're going to alternate, which I know won't come out evenly because there are 15 stitches and that's an odd number, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. For this first stitch, you want to go into just the front loop. You'll notice I haven't grabbed onto both of them. I left that one out. Single crochet 1 into that stitch, and then in the next one, the next front loop, you want to put 3 single crochets in there. So 1, 2, and 3. Oh, I lost it. 3. It happens. Nothing you can really do about it. Just don't panic and pick up your yarn. 1 in the next stitch, 3 in the next, and we just alternate those 2 things. 1, 2, and 3 into that stitch. 1 in the next stitch, 3 in the next. Just make sure you're only grabbing the front loop. Okay. 1 in this stitch and 3 in the next. One and 3. I'm going to pull some of these fibers away, they're getting in my way. 1, 2, and 3. Oh, I think I broke yarn there. I heard it snap. The stitch seems to be particularly tight for some reason. There we go. There's going to be one stitch in there. And 3 in the next. And we're very close to where we started here. So, once you've gone the whole way around, you can go ahead and you're going to want to slip stitch into the very first stitch you did to close that up. There's like a little gap there, and that makes it so that it's not as much of a gap there. For the next row, this gets a little tricky, but now since we left out those back loops, they are sticking out here, and we're actually going to decrease around in each of those stitches. So go ahead, and the first one especially can be rather difficult. There, so we're in. That's the hard part. Pull up a loop and then go into the next back loop. Pull up another loop, you'll have 3 loops on the hook. Yarn over one more time, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. That's an easier way of decreasing instead of trying to stress yourself out going into both loops at the same time. Just go ahead and yarn over after each insertion. And again, we're working with 15 stitches, and since it takes 2 to decrease, it's not going to come out evenly. But that's not a problem. For the last decrease, we're going to use 1 stitch from this row and then a stitch for the next row to decrease the last time. You can do it. Get in there. Okay. Had to give my crochet a little pep talk. And yeah, like at this point there's 1, 2, 3 left over, so like I said, that'll be uneven. 1 and 2. And so this is where the first row started. So you're going to go into here and into the front loop of this stitch. But I think this is probably a good stopping point also to go ahead and stuff it, because our hole is getting pretty small here. It's going to get really tight to put our fingers in. So let's go ahead and stuff that before we do the last stitch. So pull your yarn up a little bit so that that doesn't come out. Grab a little bit of your stuffing. I tend to stuff my amigurumis pretty firmly, but go ahead and stuff it to whatever amount of thickness you would like. Or squishiness. I also, as you can see, I use the end of my crochet hook to get the stuffing in there a little bit better. It's more comfortable to me than sticking my finger in. I don't know why, but and I actually grabbed way more stuffing than I needed. I thought I'd actually need all this, and I don't know why I thought that, but that's okay, because it just goes right back in the bag. I didn't want to grab not enough, because then I'd have to stop and get up and go get more, so this is probably a better alternative. Get in there. Okay. So I've stuffed it the amount I would like it to be stuffed. We've got a squishy little ghost now. And we can go ahead and do our last decrease, which may or may not be a little bit more difficult to do now that it's stuffed. We will see. I'll push the stuffing away as much as I can there. So into the back loop for the first half of the decrease, and then you want to go into the front loop, and you can jump over, just skip this slip stitch here and you can jump over. Oh, I'm sorry, I rocked the camera there. It's a little tricky. It's kind of a stretch there, but there we go. Now you've got 3 loops on the hook, and go ahead, pull through all 3. Pull that tight. So I think I have 6 stitches left. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, I do. So that is usually where I stop. If you'd like to make this hole smaller, you are welcome to decrease 1 or 2 more times. At this point, I just slip stitch, I finish off, I leave a long yarn tail for stringing on the keychain and for closing up that hole. So let's go ahead and slip stitch now into the next stitch. Alright, that's done. I also pulled out more yarn from my ball than I needed, and I'm about to have a knot here. Let's pull that apart. Okay. It's probably more, yeah, that's a lot more tail than I needed, but better safe than sorry. Okay, let's go ahead and close up our body here. And before we do the arms, we're going to stitch the eyes on first. Because putting the eyes on, I feel like it helps the placement of the arms a little bit better. So to weave in the ends, go in 1 stitch and out the next, all the way around. That's pretty much it. I'm going to go out one more time here. Okay, that bottom is now nice and tight. To string the keychain, you want to go back into the hole you just came out of and put your yarn needle up through the body, come out in the center of the head where that little hole is. Okay. And now we have our finished body. So let's go ahead now and do those eyes. Switch to black yarn. The eyes cover the 4th row down from the head, so make sure you count that first inner circle there. 1, 2, 3, 4 would be where those eyes would land, like up above, covering those stitches. But go ahead and insert your yarn hook yarn needle anywhere in the body. And ideally you want to be on the opposite side of where that slip stitch was, because sometimes it's pretty obvious. So I'm actually pretty much on the other side, so let's just go straight up. 2, 3, 4. I should have marked it and I didn't. The top of the 4th row, essentially, is where you want to be. And then you want to just bring your eyes straight down. And you'll go into this hole right here, right below that stitch. And then you want to come out where you just came from, so right up next to that black yarn. We don't want that. There we go. I'm just pulling up a little bit of my stuffing here, and I just want to pull that out of the way. Position it if you need to. Kind of try to move it around with my finger to fix the placement. And you want to go back down one more time. So straight down. And then come out 1 to 2 holes apart from where you just did that last one. And then you're also going to work in the stitch right below that, so this one here. And once again, come out where that yarn is. You start to get your second eye. And one more time. Insert your hook. I said it again! Needle, sorry guys. And come out where you first started. I'm going to take the needle back out because I just split that yarn and I don't want that necessarily, but... Okay. Oops, I just keep grabbing all kinds of yarn I'm not supposed to. And now you've got your 2 eyes on there. Little ghost buddy. For these 2 strands, you're going to want to knot them and then cut them off. I'm going to pull this a little tighter too. Okay. Nice and tight, and then and I gotta cut the yarn off because it's still attached to my yarn ball. That would help. Now, since your needle's still threaded, insert back into the same hole and pull that knot inside the body. I'm just trying to find a good place to exit the body. Okay. Yeah, and you'll sort of feel it go inside. Take your scissors and cut off both strands of yarn. As close to the body as you can without actually cutting the body. And then you can take the end of your yarn needle here and push those little ends into the body, and that it's like you can barely tell it was there. Squeeze it a couple times so it recedes in a little bit farther. That one doesn't want to go in as much as the other one did. There we go. It's a little better. Squishy little ghost. This one this one kind of came out with evil eyes. They're a little bit more slanted than this other one I made. But that's okay. Each one is a little bit different, so that is the beauty of crochet. No 2 things are exactly alike. Okay, let's go ahead and make the arms now, and then we'll do the keychain ring. So the arms are really simple, but they can get a little bit fiddly because it's very tight and small. But you want to make a magic ring, and you're going to crochet 4 on that magic ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, pull that tightly. And then you just want to crochet around each one again, and that's it. This is just the part that gets kind of tricky, is getting into these little tiny stitches. There. One. Sorry, bumped my camera again. Getting a little close here. Two. Three. And 4. Okay, and let's go ahead and flip it before we slip stitch. I feel like it'll be a little bit easier. Yes, much easier to flip before the slip stitch. Go ahead into that last stitch. Well, it's the first stitch of this round really, but slip stitch into that. And then go ahead and cut yourself a little tail of yarn. And you can also cut off the majority of the magic ring tail, so this shorter string here. Yeah, just cut a good bit of that off. And the rest of it, you can use your needle to push into the arm and sort of use that as your stuffing. Since it's so tiny, it doesn't really need it, so any actual stuffing anyway, but I feel like the yarn tail is just enough. And you've got a little arm, and we just want to do that one more time. Let's go ahead and pull the tail through. Oop, fell right out of my hand. Okay, move this tail over here. Pull up some more yarn. Okay, so once again, a magic ring. And 4 single crochets in that magic ring. Four. Okay. Pull your tail tightly and single crochet around. One, two, three, and 4. Leave yourself a big loop there so you can flip it inside out, or right side out, I should say, because that's really what you're doing. Slip stitch into the first stitch of the round you just did. And cut yourself a moderate sized tail. Okay, and cut off this tail, the shorter one. Once again, we're going to push that yarn down into the arm. Hide it a little bit. Okay. And we want to sew on these arms. I like to put the arms with the top being like kind of in line with the eyes, and also I skip one stitch hole and go into like the next two, and I sort of do it in a bit of a box. See how these 4 holes here kind of make a box? That's what you want to work on to get the arm on. So let's string that up onto our needle. And you can start with any of these stitches, it really doesn't matter. I will start with this one so that it is one hole back from the eyes. We'll go down. Okay, and you'll see, push the yarn tail in there a little bit more, this V, the next V, you'll want to go into. Okay, and then you want to go back into the hole you just came out of. And into the next, out the next hole in the box shape. And then into the next little V. And then we're going to go up from here into this one. Into the last of the little stitches for the arm. You're going to want to go in there, and one more time I usually go into the stitch that I started with, because the arm tends to stick up a little bit, and I like to make sure it's on there nice and tight. So go in one more time here, maybe. This one is actually on fairly well, better than how they normally are. We're gonna grab this V. I know it's hard to see because everything is white, but this V right here, we're gonna grab it. I call them V's. They're really stitches, but they look like little V's, and that's the best way I have to describe it for you guys so you can tell what I'm looking at. Back into the stitch you started with and come out anywhere on the body. It doesn't really matter. Okay, and now you've got one little arm on. I'm actually going to, I said it doesn't matter, but I'm going to move this more toward the back because the arm, the second arm is going to be put very close to that, and I don't want to get the string caught, the yarn caught, so let's pull it out the back and we can take the yarn off of our needle and get ready for the second arm. If you'd like to cut this off, you can knot it and pull it through the body and cut it off. I like to knot both strings, both yarn ends together, so that's why I leave it until I'm done. But that's totally up to you, whatever your preference is. If you don't want it to be in your way, you can move it. So once again, the top of the arm aligns with the bottom of the eye, so along this line in between, and I go one stitch hole back. So right here, so there's 1, 2. And I'm gonna go, actually I'm gonna go across. Keep it consistent in a clockwise manner. Okay. Push the yarn tail in a little bit more. Up through the first little V. Okay. Into the hole we came out of and down. Again, going in that box shape. Next V right there. And back into the hole we just came out of. Go over one. Next stitch. Actually, I think that's the last one I just grabbed. I'm sorry. I almost grabbed it again. Oop. Got ourselves a little, oh, no we don't. Okay, I thought I was a little tangled. Into the stitch we came out of and back up through the top. I have some yarn sticking out here, so I'm going to push that in as well. Just kind of came out the other side, it looks like. I may have pushed on it too hard. Okay. And once again, this is kind of loose here, right here, so we're going to go in one more time. Totally not required, but it's just something I like to do so that I know the arm is completely on there and it's not going to catch on anything, hopefully. Back into the hole you started with and come out, if you kept your yarn tail, come out where your first yarn tail was. Okay, very much like we did with the eyes. We're going to knot these and then cut them off, so let's do that. Move that out of the way and move the top out of the way here too. I think my yarn tails are a little long. Kind of hard to knot without making a big mess. Okay, put your needle back through the body, come out anywhere. Any old way is fine. Just make sure that that knot recedes, and it did, into the body. Take off my yarn here and cut those tails off. Okay, I'm going to move our yarn scraps over to the side here. It's caught on my finger. Okay, there we go. And use your needle to push the excess back in. Much easier to hide since this one's white, not like the black yarn. Squeeze them a couple times to make sure that that goes in even farther. And we've pretty much have a completed ghost now, minus the keyring. So if you would like to put him on a keychain, let's go ahead and do that now. You're going to take the end of the yarn that's coming out of the top of the head. I'm going to cut a little bit off of it because it's fraying and I know that that's not going to string through the keychain. But using either your fingers or a smaller needle if you have one. I do, but I actually just don't mind doing this with my fingers, so you're going to want to string the yarn through the very last chain here of this keychain ring. It does take some playing with sometimes, but see, yeah, that happens. Oops. Would help if I used my dominant hand. I am left-handed. If you're a crocheter and everything looks backwards to you, that's why. Okay, sorry that was a little bit more fidgety than usual. Maybe I should have used a needle. That's okay. So once I've got the keychain on there, I take my crochet hook and you want to insert it into the hole, either in front or behind, whichever you prefer. It's not a super huge deal either way, but I'm gonna go behind, so I'm gonna stick my crochet hook in there and come out in the middle where that yarn is coming from. I'm going to grab the yarn above the keychain, make sure that this is pushed up against the body, yarn over with that, and pull through. And you've got one loop on the hook. Yarn over with it and pull through again. You're kind of doing pretty much a chain there. And then go into the hole in the middle and out through the front. And you're going to, wait, I think I'm off here. Let's go back real quick. Oh no, that was right. I apologize. Into the middle and out through the front, as in the center as you can get it. That's probably as in the center as I can get it. Okay. Yarn over, and you're gonna make a slip stitch. And that will get that yarn nice and tight on there. That has been the phrase of the day, nice and tight. Sorry for being a repetitive person. Now we've got our crochet hook, or our keychain ring kind of towards the back of the ghost. So what you can do now is just pull that yarn through. And I have got something going on here. I don't know what happened, but I'm gonna pull that off. I think I just grabbed some of the cotton from the inside by accident. It caught onto something there. That doesn't typically happen, but anyway, go ahead and thread your needle one more time. Last time, I promise. Usually these take me about a half hour, but it's definitely taken me longer while like explaining everything. And you can go ahead into that middle hole one more time. Come out, go a little farther down so that it gets mixed in with the stuffing. And you're just pulling that yarn through. And that pulls everything in, and it's pretty hard now to see where those stitches are. They're receded inside. Okay, and that is pretty much it for your little ghost keychain. You can knot this and pull it through one more time if you want. I don't do that because I've slip stitched already and I feel like that's tight enough. So go ahead, cut your yarn off. We're gonna take the yarn off of the needle and use the needle one more time to push the yarn down into the body. Squeeze them up a little bit so that he returns to his proper shape. And there you have it, little ghost keychain. Fairly easy. I think this video is going to be about an hour long. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll have to see when I do the editing, but I hope this can be considered a beginner's pattern. Thank you guys for tuning in to my first tutorial crochet along. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, I would love it if you left them in the comments. Also, if you have any suggestions as to what I should crochet next, please let me know. I'd love to hear that as well. Thank you guys once again, and happy Halloween!